It's great. It's like 3 videos that I managed to miss. I don't know how that happened. I think it's because I didn't put Manon as a, how do you say, abonnement, whatever. So I missed your last one, but now I just saw everything, and I get very excited because I recognize a lot of the issues that you were speaking about. I recognize in many different ways. So I'm trying to see, to go through my notes of all the things that I was thinking about. So in relation to this question of how, so what Manon asked, how we are using the spaces, or how this influences the trance dance. For me, I like Sira, I'm very much on this, it's an abstract thing, so I'm dealing with texture, density, rhythm, speed, quality, all these things, but I'm not manipulating these texture, density, speed, quality, and so on from a formal point of view. I'm trying to do it through the spaces and through narratives in a way, or through imagination. And for me, this is very different to work on formal dance or abstract dance or movement. It's very different to work on movement in this way than to work on it from, okay, I make the movement heavier, and then, so if I imagine that I'm in a space where the air is thick, then my movement become heavier because of that. But so that's how I try to find this link between narration, imagination, thought, and intention. So this thing, what you say about that it adds an intention, for me, I think that's one of the main things what it does. The intention with which I'm changing the physical principle, which is actually an abstract principle, but the way I'm manipulating the principle is not from an abstract point of view. It's from a concrete, imaginative, narrative point of view, but it doesn't show up in the way that I'm dancing. So, and I think it has to do with the question about language and how the body relates to language. So we are not producing a physical language where I'm not using gestures. So I'm not doing this, or so I'm not using concrete gestures, but the intention with which I do the abstract, or I find myself in things where I have tensions and where all of a sudden I can look very expressive or narrative, but I don't. I try to keep this balance between I'm doing an abstract physical principle, but I'm manipulating it with my imagination, narratives, and so on. I don't know if that makes it any clearer. For sure, for me, it's all very confusing, this thing about listening to the sounds, how the sounds are affecting me, and then this thing about the language. And I did like Manon, I recorded myself saying the spaces, and actually I have to say I made another score, which I maybe should upload. I didn't think about that. But I made another score which has more the pacing of the video, that the sound score that Sira posted, because I was counting, and about in 7 minutes there's, I think, 8 spaces, and then in the end it goes quick. There's three quick ones. But I also had this, like in 8 minutes I have 7 different spaces, which means that I'm more like having 1 minute inside of a space, and then I hear a new one, and then I transform. Because for sure there's something very difficult in trying to stay true to the principle and at the same time changing your mind, because your mind can of course change like this. You hear the word and you can change, and then it takes a while, since we are in this looping, so it takes a while to transform the body. And if then the next space is already coming before I reach the physical reality of the second space, then it gets a bit lost. So I don't know, maybe we have to simplify, and that the score I posted the other day, that's a very complex thing. But it could also, I would like to still try to see if I can manage that. But for the moment I'm working a bit slower. Also what I'm doing is to start from really the physical. I do miniature, I'm doing long, like I do 1 hour long dancing. So I do 20-minute miniature, and then I do 10 minutes of really working on the loops and really being in the physical very, very strictly. And after that I start to think about the spaces, and actually this makes it much easier, I think, to maintain the physical principle once the spaces come on top. nevertheless, it's for sure that when you hear a new word, then you the body wants to change because you want to make a change. So this I still don't know. Maybe it's also possible to skip or whatever, but this we can also do in different ways. Then I thought the Siras, it's very nice to see the score, exactly what Manon is saying, that you're not mentioning spaces, but you're mentioning this, a character or lovers everywhere, what is that as a space? But I can get a very clear, in a way I can get a very clear sensation of what kind of space this could be. And that's where I have been working with the difference between a category of a space and then a personal memory of a space. So what I do is to say, I say staircase, and then I try to say, no, I am in the staircase in the house where I grew up, and it's a very steep staircase, so I have to use my hands also to go up, so it's something between a staircase and a ladder. And I even have a kinesthetic or physical memory of that particular space. So what I'm trying to do is to, for each category of space, so if I have staircase, hallway, I say hallway, it's the hallway in the gymnasium where I was studying from being 16 to 18, so I was always walking super fast because I was always late for class. And then I try to find, in a way, like personal memories that are connected to space that are also kinesthetic, so that also have physical memory that I can use, and this helps me. And then of course I have other spaces, like I have now a labyrinth, for example, in my new score. I have a labyrinth, and then the labyrinth that I imagine is from a book that I have read once upon a time. So it was a book that gave me a very strong sensation of space, but that of course I've never experienced, and it's a hexagonal space where there are doors in everywhere and you can enter and exit from all sides. So, and it's a very specific sensation also. So I think another way of working on these spaces is to actually try to create connected to physical sensation. Also I say airplane, and then what kind of physical sensation does this create in you? So I don't know. For me it's very clear how it's working. I still don't know if it's good. I also filmed myself, in fact, and I find it quite interesting, this semi-meaningful, like there's a certain autonomy in the expression, because it's impossible, as a spectator, it's impossible to know exactly what I'm doing, but at the same time I see something very precise. So what Sia says, she's doing something like this, and it doesn't mean anything, but nevertheless the expression has a lot of intentionality. And this is where I find that this science fiction aspect that we left behind long ago, in a way, but that's where it's still there. And also the kinds of spaces that Sira now mentions in her score, they for me have something very crazy, which is very nice, because then the imagination is also, it's not only concrete, but it's also a strong situation, but that is imagined. And then in relation to the techno song or whatever,